there is this energy force that goes around the planet that makes people kind of move to opposite sides of the world for some unknown reason to help balance it out.
Wow.
And they call it the Harmonic Convergence.
You're listening to the Transcendent Farmer Podcast with your host, Emily Reno. Welcome back to another episode of the Transcendent Farmer Podcast. I wanted to provide a little bit more context and background information for listeners about this particular interview. The reason is that I have a little bit more of experience with the owner and the interviewee of this particular episode. And I think that shout out to Keith from Canada, if you're listening to this. I wanted to thank him for the advice and the suggestion, because most listeners at this point know that I've taken my interviews and this sort of work with me all over the globe, and I don't necessarily always paint the picture of what it is to be in these places, what it feels like, what the textures and the sounds are, and I feel like that's a really important part of what it means to be a storyteller. So Santa Teresa, it's a super interesting community. I had no idea that it existed until I made my way out there, and it was kind of almost through a fluke, and maybe not a fluke. I mean, sometimes I just feel like I need to lean into this idea that things don't happen by accident, and that we are taken to the places that we belong in the moment that we're supposed to, and that people are brought into our lives for a reason, and they stay there for as long as they, I think, serve us. So I ended up having a situation where I had to find a new plan in terms of volunteering at a farm in exchange for a place to live. And I had basically set up an arrangement. And in one day before I was scheduled to leave the US and fly to Costa Rica, that plan fell through. And so I ended up getting an Airbnb for a week in San Jose, in the capital, to buy myself some time and figure out, okay, what does this next plan look like? And through a friend in Minnesota, and basically a friend of a friend that had connections in Costa Rica to the permaculture community, I ended up taking a bus, a ferry, and then another bus out to this small town on the Nicoya Peninsula. Anyone who has looked at information related to Costa Rica, or just what are called blue zones in the globe, Santa Teresa and really the Nicoya Peninsula in particular, that part of the country, is one of the blue zones globally. And so what is a blue zone? A blue zone is essentially a location where the quality of life is so high that the people that are living there tend to live much longer than most other people. That is in the particular location, like within that region of the country, or the country overall, or at a global scale, that the lifespan and the quality of life are being measured, and they just rank a lot higher. And so you have to ask yourself this question of why is that? Why is it that people are living so much longer in this particular area? And what people have done is gone back and studied those things and figured out, okay, what is it about the circumstances, the environment in which people are operating that allow them to have that quality of life and to live for so much longer? When I had the opportunity to go to Santa Teresa, I honestly didn't know what I was getting into. And I think that as a very conscious and intentional international traveler, I was able to keep this critical mindset and thinking cap on my head in terms of really just taking all of the information in and recognizing that there are people who will migrate from one place to another. And a lot of times it's because they're leaving maybe their home country for economic reasons. If you've listened to the podcast, you've probably heard a couple of those expats, I would say, that I have interviewed. One of them was Valentin Gomez, and another one was Martin Strandberg. And both of them, they left their countries for different reasons. They ended up in Santa Teresa. And a lot of people, it wasn't necessarily by choice that they ended up there. It was because they knew someone who had relocated there and their quality of life was just much better. And so just to give you a sense of kind of what this community is like, there is one single road that goes through the main part of the town. On one side, you have the beach and just this really, I don't know, like lovely kind of what they call like the selva. And in this, so all of these trees, and then you basically on the beach, right? There's very little space in between those things. And then on the other side of the road, you have all of these retail businesses. As you go inland, you're basically looking at a giant hill. And so all of these homes are built into the hillside, and it just kind of climbs and climbs and climbs. I'll never forget there was one night when I was staying at what I call the compound at Tom's property on the beach. And I was woken up by these crazy, wonderful DJs that were up in the hillside. And you could just see from below this house shining with these lights. These are like world-renowned DJs who are flying into this little tiny town, and they're getting paid to play at these private parties. Just to also give you a sense of the demographic makeup, or just who all is living in this place. I think one of the interesting statistics or facts that Tom gave me was that 70 different countries are represented in terms of nationalities of the people that are living in this community. So it's a very culturally diverse place, and you see that reflected in the kinds of restaurants that are available, definitely in the languages that you hear as you're walking down the street, and just the diversity of the options that are available in some of those other retail shops. So what's interesting is that it was not always that way. And this is something that you will hear reflected in the conversation that I have with Tom. I think in a lot of ways, he's kind of like the OG. He's like one of the first people that moved to this town before it was anything. And you'll hear him describe that in just the changes and the growth, and him having started out living there without electricity and just camping, and then starting to build different opportunities to generate revenue, whether that was through the rental properties that he created or some of these other entrepreneurial endeavors, like starting the first bike shop in town. And so you can see how over time, as he was there, the community continued to grow and expand and bring in more international folks who were then starting to take over in terms of land ownership. So when it comes to the different options or the people that are there, I think it's important to emphasize that there's probably more people that live in the area that are not from Costa Rica than who are locals. And you'll often see that reflected in the labor economy, as in who is it that are working in some of these positions of construction, for example, or the people who are cleaning your homes. That is pretty evident.
I'm really excited to be sitting across from someone very interesting. I think you'll agree with me by the time we end this interview. Thomas Ritchie is a woodworker, surfer, father, husband, caretaker, health nut, risk taker, cell phone-less visionary who is building a digital detox center on the Nicoya Peninsula here in Costa Rica. His involvement in the community ranges everywhere from taking plastic caps and turning them into usable laminas or sheets to macaw habitat conservation to serving as the director and founder of the lifeguard gym here in Santa Teresa. He is a connector on a mission to bring people closer to nature, and I have the privilege of interviewing him today for the podcast. So, welcome, Tom.
Hey, nice to be here, Emily. It's taken a while, but we're here.
Indeed, indeed. Typically, I like to start these questions off by having people explain a little bit about their cultural background and upbringing and how that has shaped who you are today.
Well, being raised in Canada and British Columbia, right on the border, we were pretty close to the water, and there was a lot of fishing and a lot of logging, and it was not a lot of culture, really, just a lot of just everyday Canadians and playing hockey and skateboarding and whatever, just kind of being a normal kid. But we were lucky enough to have a father that worked hard enough to take his kids to Hawaii for vacation and Christmas and Easter, and so I got into surfing and seeing a little bit of the tropics and other parts of the world. And yeah, I was lucky to be raised in a good area where we could play in the bushes and had some horses around and lived on a hobby farm, and got to make tree houses and had neighbors that were Jehovah's Witness woodworkers, and I used to hang out there. So I started a passion for woodworking, and knew I was going to be a carpenter my whole life. And when I got out of elementary school, I knew I was going to be a woodworker, and all I took in high school was woodworking and metalwork and power mechanics and drafting and woodwork production and basically everything without the literature stuff and academic stuff. I was not a big reader or scholar, and not much into languages. It's been a little challenging living in Costa Rica for 34 years, but somehow we figured it out. But I've always been good with my hands, and also we missed on there that I am a synergy artist sculptor too. And that's a big passion of mine, finding driftwood that have rocks grown inside of them. 1 out of 100 trees actually suck up the rocks. And Costa Rica has a lot of trees and varieties, so they wash up on the beach here, and we have a little estero, a river mouth, where we've been living for the last 34 years. And so about 24 years ago, a big tree washed up with about 4 or 5 big rocks stuck in it. So I took my chainsaw down there and cut them out and dried it up, and then started sculpting, and it's turned into a new form of art that we call synergy. And our life has just been also evolved around surfing, and that's got me to travel lots and see a lot of the world and learn about healing and dealing with injuries. And so we've just tried to stay healthy and surf as much as we can and be a family man and raise our kids here in the jungle and stay out of the system. And that's why we don't have a phone. And so I'm a Gmailer, and we've been we were the first ones to do camping here by accident. Any foreigners that happened to get a ride down to the beach here back in 90, they would just drive into my house because they would go like, well, you've got surfboards and they've got surfboards, so you want to hang together, right? And so we were all camping because there was nowhere to stay down here, so we just camped out. And before, in the first year or two, there was like 20 tents set up, and we were having a little kitchen, and we were the first camping on the beach. And then after 4 years of camping, while we were building the house, we got tired of that, so we built a little cabina to live through our 5th rainy season under a roof. And then after we moved into the house that took us 4 years and or more to build by hand, hence the term why Rome wasn't built in a day. It's because they never had any free electricity. And so we moved out of the cabin and then into the house, and then we started renting the cabina out, and then all of a sudden we were like cabina renters. And then we built another one. We turned our bodega into a little rental and built another little shack, and we could hold 15 people on the property for about 15 years. We also started the first bike store with my friend Letty called Ciclo Letty. And we also started the first surf shop and surf school, the first art gallery, the first fitness center. And I built the first one to build a boat here on the beach. And we built this pirate ship that we started in 2000. I thought our town was too busy. And so I can imagine. And so I started building this boat. And then we had problems with our epoxy and delambing. And so the boat sat upside down for about 7 years. And I got so much flack from all my friends that I'd never finished the boat, so I finally got serious and quit drinking and smoking for a bit and powered out on the boat. And finally launched in 2008. And then we cruised up and down the coast searching for a new Santa Teresa, a new place with great waves and no people, for about 6 years. And we got to the frontera, the border of Panama, like 6 times. We really liked Golfito and Golfo Dulce and Drake's Bay, and Southern Zone was really nice. And then we packed in the pirate ship life around 2014 and kind of gave up the booze and shaved my head and got serious and got into the community. And then I was approached by my friend Matias Echenique, this Argentinian lifeguard. He came to me to build 3 towers for our beaches because the population was really growing and the tourism was really growing. There was always like 2 or 3 deaths per year. So I said to him, I go, well, we only want to built 3 towers. What about the people in Hermosa? Mm-hmm. Because he talked about covering for Semana Santa, the Holy Week, Easter, just Santa Teresa and Carmen. Mm-hmm. And he said, we only have 3 or 4 friends, and so we don't really have enough manpower. And I made a joke. I said, what, do we don't care about the people in Hermosa, as a joke? And then as I was chopping the bamboo to make that we grew to build the towers, we had a double drowning in Hermosa where a 2-year-old and an aunt of the 2-year-old drowned. And so that really affected the community and brought everybody together. And just by chance, in that same year, the Costa Rican government made it a law where the surf instructors had to take a basic CPR water safety course of like 3-4 days. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our local surfer instructors, friends of mine, had happened to take this course, so they thought they were lifeguards. It was like a very basic course, but they assumed the role of lifeguards, and we built 2 more towers for Hermosa, and the Santa Teresa Lifeguard Association was formed. Hmm. And so we were raising money for the community, and then I started the association online and the numbers and got a lawyer involved and did all the domain names, all that stuff. And then we started meeting here once a week, and then I had to divide the money and pay the locals. And we had 5 towers we were running, $50 a tower, $250 a weekend, a Saturday, $250 a Sunday, $500 a weekend, $2,000 a month. And the first year we raised like about 20 grand. Mm-hmm. So it was really good. Yeah. And then the second year was like 14 grand. The last year was like 4 grand. Community didn't want to support us anymore. Mm-hmm. And that really comes to a funny thing. Is like in the lifeguarding world, if nobody drowns, nobody cares. Yeah. Until somebody drowns, then everybody like, oh, you need a jet ski, you need this, you need that, whatever. But so that's been a challenge running the lifeguard gym, the association. And then we realized that we were never going to have enough money to pay the lifeguards. A big problem was we would get money and donations from the community, pay the workers, the lifeguards on the weekends, and then they'd say, well, what about, we went to the beach on Wednesday, we didn't see any lifeguards, we just see the tower empty. Mm-hmm. And so we had to constantly explain that we only have enough money to pay for weekends. Mm-hmm. And so that was difficult dealing with everybody. And then we realized that we were never going to have enough funding to like pay everybody. So we had to switch to a volunteer program. So we happened to have a Cuban neighbor, Alberto, who lived on the corner of our property up on the top there, sell his land, and we got onto that piece. And Matthias was a fitness instructor, and so we decided to make it into a gym. And then the proceeds from the gym would help pay the volunteers, and then the volunteer program started really growing. And now we're about 5 years into the volunteer program, and we have 17 volunteers from around the world manning 5 towers, soon 3 other little mini towers. And so that's growing, and that takes a lot of energy and a lot of work. And my partner, Christine, got into that. She helps accounting because my daughter also became a lifeguard, and she wanted to keep an eye on her. And so, yeah, so now it's a family affair. We've got great people. We have 6 employees that help run that, and fitness instructors and captains and receptionists, and run the gyms. Turned into this really amazing energy thing where we love to promote healing, and it's really great to watch people transform and help people get healthy and stuff. So we're really proud of all that.
Yeah. And I would say from my experiences here last year, it was pretty cool because early on I got an invitation, and I'm honestly not sure how this happened, but I ended up getting an invitation to join the lifeguards at just one of their many sort of group dinners. And it was so apparent to me, just the chemistry between everyone. Like it feels like a little family. And I know that you guys have different like cohorts, stop times. And so it was very cool because to hear from all of the places across the world that they were coming to be here just like blew my mind. And I think that was a similar experience that I had when I was in India last year for my yoga teacher training. Of the 12 people that we had, I think only 2 of them were from India, and everybody else was from all over the place. And so it was a very cool way to get exposed to different cultures and learn firsthand from people what their experiences were like from all over the place. And I feel like in general that just makes you much more compassionate and like open as a human when you can say, oh yeah, I have friends in this country and that country. And a lot of the messages that we get from the media and stuff, they're like trying to tell us a certain narrative about a place, but until you have that personal connection, it's sort of like you can believe all of those things, or you can come up with your own ideas about what's happening based on those relationships that you have. That's very interesting.
One of the goals we had when we came to Costa Rica in 1990 was that I was to be able to sit down and have a meal that all the food on the table came from our property. But being a surfer junkie, I bought beachfront property very cheap, like 25 grand for a hectare. And half of it's sand and grows very slow, and ocean air and salt and shade. And so it's only these weird palms and pandajos and different kind of plants that grow up there. And then the other half of the property is soil mixed with sand.
Mm-hmm.
The previous Tico Selimo Seguros, who owned the land, he had some grapefruit trees and some lemon trees, and we did papayas, and there's lots of pipas, and we were getting some food from our area, and we still are getting the odd stuff. We have a lot of mangoes dropping on the house, and we have the odd little citrus and lemon, whatever, but it's kind of, those trees have kind of passed and died now. And in 2000, I also came up with the concept of the Little World Project. That was a dream of getting 200 nationalities together on one space to show the world that we can live together in peace and harmony. And that really didn't come to fruit. The idea never went away, and I was always promoting it and talking it and dreaming it and thinking about it and revising it. But I was still drinking and being a pirate and stuff, and it wasn't really time yet. But I wish I would have bought the land back there and everything and planted some trees, because it would have been a lot farther along.
Mm-hmm.
But the year before COVID, we sold some beachfront property. We've been lucky enough to move some land around and get here cheap and early, and always be ahead of the cycle in a lot of concepts and businesses, and taking advantage of getting some cheap land at the right times and stuff. And so we bought some land in 2008 when the market crashed and our friends needed a hand. And so we sold that the year before, or just the year before COVID. And if we would have waited, we would have done good. But anyway, we sold that, and then we took some of that money and we bought this farm out in Rio Frio that was supposed to be 120 hectares. As we were negotiating, COVID hit, and so the price dropped drastically, so we got a good deal on that. And so that was, like 4 years ago or something now. We've been planting a lot of bamboo up there. We've got over thousands of bamboo plants in the ground, and a couple of rounds of the 90 of Costa Rica has 47 different types of bamboo they sell in this bamboo tico nursery down in the southern zone. So we bought a couple of truckloads of this bamboo, and so we put the bamboo all around, and we have a little bit of botanical gardens. And a lot of it that we're hoping to export is like the guara, is the green bamboo for construction. And then we have another bamboo for aesthetics, and then another bamboo for erosion. But probably one of the most planted plant on the finca is the vetiver. Mm-hmm. And that's an amazing zacate grass that we use it for retention of the banks, because we've been cutting a few roads and trying to get higher up into the finca, very hilly zone. And so it was all pasture, 90% second growth and a little bit of virgin forest. Mostly second growth, and the previous farmer was doing cattle for about 50 years and then stopped for about the last 10 years. There hasn't been cattle on it, but so some of the pasture land is where we've been putting is the only somewhat flat area too. And so we've been putting some roads and some infrastructure and shalas and greenhouses and outdoor kitchens and a few cabinas, casitas, trying to get ready for this digital detox center and hopefully launching into the Little World project in the future. But the vetiver has been amazing, a big help for us holding the bank from the heavy rains when they come. And we're just like another 10,000. It's just they're very cheap, and they're just a little tiny bushel of these grass. But after a year in the ground, and the second year, you can propagate it 5 times. And hopefully I have friends that are using it for roofing material. So in the future,
living roof.
Yeah,
okay.
So that's what they use in Indonesia, actually. It's a form of this grass roof, and I didn't know it was the vetiver, but now I'm aware of it. Okay. And so we have tens of thousands of these vetiver all over the farm. And then, like I said, we split them every year, another 5 times kind of thing. So I'd say in about 2 or 3 more years, we are going to have a lot of Vitavir that we can start to move to do some roofs. And I'm excited to do turning that into some roof material.
Yes. I think people would be particularly interested in hearing more about this Digital Detox Center and the Little World Project. Like, what is the vision for that? Where did the idea come from in the first place? And we'll just start there.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Little World Project came in 2000 when I think the Gulf War had ended and we went through a period where it was before 9/11, and I don't know, I really wanted to show the world that we can live together in harmony. And so I started coming up with this concept of having a finca or a farm with 200 nationalities. Roughly the United Nations recognizes 185 to 195 countries per year. And it fluctuates a lot. It's a lot of conspiracy in between that, and it's hard to get good accurate information on the United Nations, because what requires being a country is based on working with the IMF and the World Bank. And there's a lot of independent countries that you've never heard of that are not included on that list, right? So, but anyway, 200 nationalities seem like the roughly, that's what we're shooting for. And Costa Rica doesn't have an army, and it just seemed like the place to do it. And it was a very much a stoner kind of idea to try to bring peace to the world. And the hippies say that I came here in a thing called the Harmonic Convergence. I'm still trying to figure that out, but
like a time, like a vortex of some kind.
Every 30,
like
40 years, there is this energy force that goes around the planet that makes people kind of move to opposite sides of the world for some unknown reason to help balance it out.
Wow.
And they call it the Harmonic Convergence.
Okay.
Right? And so I guess I left around 90 when it was just ending or whatever, starting, and I came here. And so I wasn't in my plan to come to Costa Rica. And it was like, again, the passion of surfing, finding waves, seeing these white sand beaches with nobody on it. And we lived for 5 years without electricity.
Yes.
That was one of the best 5 years of my life. So now we're doing it again on the farm. We are running some solar now. And we have like 5-6 people living up there, Costa Ricans and Nicaraguans. And the Little World Project is a very big, intensive dream legacy project that we're working away at slowly. But to get practice at that, I learned that actually from being a synergy artist and my sculpting, having our gallery, we put on numerous exhibitions highlighting all the local artists in town, but I had like 3 or 4 shows myself. And people would love the synergy. They'd come in and they'd look at this wood and the rock wrapped around the rock. And on the very first show, about half of the people would come up to me some during the event or after, and they'd say to me like, how do you get the rock in there? Do you use like steam? Do you bend that wood around? Do you use hydraulics? Do you press it in there? How do you chisel it out and fit that rock in there like that? You're so good at the way you fit that rock in there. And I just look at these people, I was shocked, and I could not believe that they didn't understand that this was a natural process, and the rocks were in the ground and the trees' roots grew around it. The Costa Rica has so many different types of trees. About 1% of all the trees suck up the rocks.
Got it.
And half of that percent is trees that grow extremely fast, and the other half of that percent is like trees that grow so slow. And there is a lot of them in the country, but you know, if the root is growing around that rock, 99% of the time it just pushes away the rock, because that speed matches the push. And as the root grows, it just pushes everything away. So you walk down the beach and you see stumps without rocks. But if you look really hard and 100 stumps, you're going to find one. So I had to explain all that to the people, and I learned that the people were just so disconnected to nature. And it started getting me on this digital detox center, and this has been like, I think we stopped the gallery in like 2000, 2010 or 2014 when we started the gym and the Lifeguard Association. So it only went for like 6 years. And that was a great 6 years. We never made any money, but we did pay the bills and just kind of stimulate the art in the community. If we had it now, we'd be killing it.
Yeah.
Because the town's growing around and need the art. But yeah, so the concept of our little digital detox center kind of came from that. And plus I don't have a phone, and I see people scrolling all day long and missing out on life and the lines, and they're just watching people disconnect. And Costa Rica kind of brings them back to nature. And we were a big advocate for, like, nature is the secret. My whole thing, nature is God, God is nature, one world, one love kind of thing. But nature is the secret. If you are going to gravitate towards the 15-minute city by the World Economic Forum, you're in trouble. And just going to the urban area, if there's any kind of crisis from a solar flare or a polar shift or a economy problem or a war or anything, and you're in the city, you're going to be out of food, you're going to be out of problems. So that's why I think your job as a Transcendent Farmer, helping farmers all over the world, spiritually, financially, physically, mentally, create a better farm and a better lifestyle and help them mentally, is an amazing thing. And so I feel like I'm not the best sculptor. I highlight nature and the phenomenon of the wood growing around the rock. And I realize that some of the synergies take on characters and they turn into waves or a hand or a boat or a yoga position, but 1 in 10. And I've got hundreds and hundreds of these synergies that I've been saving with the goal of getting it in the Guggenheim. That's my dream. Or now my vision is moving it towards, I think, Japan, because I think they appreciate anomalies more in nature, and I think they're going to really be more receptive to it. So that's kind of my dream, is to get synergy going there. But yeah, so I figured that I'm not the best sculptor, but I am an artist of sorts, and but mostly I'm a natural educator. And when I take people up to the farm and I show them all the teak farming that is ruining our country, we have over 80 different teak companies that Emily has researched for me and helped me out a little bit on that one, or a lot. And a few owners, they've lobbied the government. They've changed the laws in favor of chopping rainforests in the guise of planting, reforestating teak, which is a hybrid teak, not from this country. It has no flower, so there's no honey, and we need to pollen the honey. On the farm, we're big honey farmers. We've been doing the honey bees up there for about 4 years now. It's like an incredible buzz, to say the least. No pun intended, but I recommend anybody getting into beekeeping and making honey and bottling honey, because you learn so much information about nature, about medicinal food, being the apex food, and learning the amazing stuff. Like, they've found honey in the pyramids that have been 3,000 years old, and it's still edible, and that's why it's the apex food of the planet. It's pure medicine. You can drink it in warm water and it will help you lose weight. You can drink honey with cold water and it will help you gain weight. There's so many medicinal uses for it, and it heals you vibrationally. The bees all vibrate in the key C, and it's helped people, war vets with PTSD, whatever, and they syndrome, when they come back from the war and they're all fried, their nerves and their senses and their touch and their emotional, they're ruined. But suppose they put the suit on and they go sit with the bees for an hour every day, and after a month it actually recalibrates their whole body and mind.
Yeah.
And they come back to their normal state.
Which seems to be a theme that I'm picking up a lot in even just the last week. And I know in part it's because of content you've been exposing me to as part of my work here. But it's also stuff that I've been listening to before, and even just one of the previous podcast episodes that I was listening to yesterday, where I interviewed a woman, Terry, and I'm excited for people to listen to that episode. Highly recommend it before this one, because she talks about communicating via frequency and vibration being this like very important medium and just a theme that I'm seeing across all of these different spaces. And I feel like I didn't really pick that up the first time that you shared that statistic with me about the people who are recovering from PTSD. And it's the vibration of the bees, right? That like you're tapping into a vibration internally within your body. And then you see it again too, like with water, for example, like 72% of the human body is made up of water. And so using water as a medium to connect with our bodies, like when water is vibrating, that also like creates a vibration within our bodies. It's wild. It's really wild to think about that. There's something I wanted to pull out from what you said earlier that I think people would be really interested in hearing. You said that the years that you lived without electricity were some of the best years of your life. Mm-hmm. Why?
Well, the obvious is stuff like no bills, but also just the quietness, the connection to nature, how slow everything went, your time, and the rhythm that we were in. We would get up really early and go surf for a couple hours and come back and then have a quick granola and then start working on the house and then take a quick nap and siesta in the middle of the day and then work some more and then maybe sneak out for an evening surf and come back, have dinner, and then you were done. And it was the hours here are 12 and 12. So you take advantage of that, and it's pretty much the way that the Tico lives here is they get up really early at 4:30 and they're in the field and they're working in the dark almost, and then by the time it's hot and it's 10 o'clock or 10:30, they're like crashing and eating and chilling for that midday heat that can be very intense in the dry season, especially this year being La Nino. And then after 2 o'clock, they're back in the field and they're back chopping and they're doing their stuff. And as soon as it's sunset, when it gets dark, well, nobody has flashlights, nobody has this, and they just come home and eat leña. We had a propane tank. We would get blocks of ice delivered every once in a while, and we would go literally weeks without ice, and that was no big deal because you had cheese that could sit on the counter forever. It was squeaky cheese. Mm-hmm. It was just so salty, it would just not go bad. And like you had repollo, cabbage. We ate so many cabbage salads. I almost I never wanted to have one again. And then we would just have rice and beans and rice, or gallo pinto. Mm-hmm. Or a treat would be pasta and stuff like that. But it was very simple, eating a lot of fish. But, people would just walk up to us, the lobster fisherman with a big sack of lobster, and say, hey, I got 24 lobster. I'd be like, well, what do you need? And I'd be like $5, and I'd feel bad. I give him like $10 or something like that for 24 giant lobster. And so it was so cheap. The fish and the lobster, and the eating was good, the living was good. There was only a few dozen of us foreigners down here, and a lot of them were like running from the law. They were like tax evasion, they were like drug dealers, they were like high profile artists or people that just wanted to live a very remote, exclusive life that they didn't want a lot of people around. And that was the magic of our area for the first 5 to 10 years in the 90s. When power came, changed the dynamics a lot.
Yes.
And we are writing a book about the history of our town. And one of the names of the book that we're thinking about is called Good Roads Bring Bad People, and Bad Roads Bring Good People. And that's in a nutshell, that's what really sums up our area. It was hard to get here. You had to have a big 4x or hitchhike and have your backpack and your tent, and you just camped out under a tarp. And living within that first 50 meters on the coastline in Costa Rica, you get the wind, you are in touch with the tides, and it's just cool living in the shade under the almond trees. And that's where you want to be, basically. Otherwise, up on top of a mountain is good too, because There's a lot of cool breeze and stuff. But in between, a lot of hot areas with no wind. And yeah, it was just an amazing time living and having our kids with midwives and in remote areas and natural birth and just hippies and organic market that we'd have to hike forever to go get the groceries. And it was just, everything was a little tougher to get and to deal with. There was only stores in Kobano, and that was like a whole day away, basically, even though it's like, now it's like an hour away or something, but it used to take us all day. And if it was rainy, the hill was muddy and we couldn't get out.
Yeah.
So our lives revolved around the weather. If
Yes.
it was raining hard for 3 or 4 days, everybody was just locked in, and you just hope you didn't run out of propane. Otherwise, you were cooking with wood, and you had your wood stove, and hopefully you had some dry wood kicking around. And so the locals were all doing that. They wouldn't even have propane tanks, and that helps out too, because everybody was living under ranchos and palms. And then the foreigners thought that was a good idea, so they'd build a house with a palm roof, and then they would get infested with like insects and bugs and things.
Yeah.
Because they didn't cook with wood, right? The smoke of that wood fire is a natural fumigation that keeps all the bugs and the bats and the animals out of the roof. And it's very important, the symbiosis that go together. So it's a learning thing, and the roofs only last 7 years, and you got to change them and dry the palms and set it all up and then re-palm your roof. And so that's kind of faded out. We don't see too many palm roofs around anymore.
Yes.
Things have evolved, but it was a magical time living without electricity. I highly recommend everybody doing it, and it's something that nowadays you can have mini solar setups. You can charge your stuff. You can get a little wind generator. You can get a little water turbine. You can get things to make it easier, and that's what we're doing on the farm. There's no power up there, and so we're hoping to get people to come up to the farm and drop their electronics off at our office here, our clubhouse, and do 7 days without power. And we'll just keep them activated with massages and saunas and yoga and breath work and horticulture and permaculture and hiking and biking and archery and all these different activities. So we're just finished our first little casita, and we're going to make 4. We're going to be able to have 8 guests in a very short time, and it's been 3-4 years of struggles, a lot of setbacks, reliability of backhoe operators and machinery, and rains and getting materials and access and just transportation, and it's an hour away, and so driving up, driving back. I'm only up there a couple days a week now, and that's beautiful. It's at the base of the Cerro Frio mountain. That's 760 meters, so we have a 2-hour hike up to the top and a 2-hour down hike. It's 4 hours actually from the bottom, but now we can drive up a little ways to make it easier. And it's an amazing hike, and I feel like, again, I'm a natural educator, teaching people not only about the teak problems, but about what kind of scat we see, and is it monkey, is it whiteface, is it a cat? We have 6 different types of cats up in the area. We see armadillos and anteaters and very odd little turtle and a few snakes up there. They've chopped a lot of the snakes up, but yeah, so we have some high-profile neighbors like Giselle Bundchen and Tom Brady kind of thing, and we're just trying to promote people to buy land around us. We have about 30,000 hectares of watershed. They call it cataratas, and it's where all the springs and the rivers begin, because it's the highest part of the region on the peninsula, and everything just flows out in a spider web in every direction. All the rivers start. And as the rainy seasons kick in, the springs start going, the rivers start going, and then the rivers are alive and everything's nice. And we're lucky enough to have water up there all year round because we're so high up in the mountains. Most of the rivers in Costa Rica kind of dry up around here in the dry season, and they're more seasonal. And yeah, so it's just a lot of fun trying to get, I like to build, I like to keep this vision going, and hopefully we get working on the Little World project. But if we can't hold 8 or 20 people up there, then we'll see what happens with the Little World project. But
Indeed.
I've been stimulated a few neighbors to buy some land around me and who are into it, and I'm hoping to hold like a fourth of 150 and then another 150 and 4 times 4 to build up like 600 people, 400 or 500 from the nationalities, 2 from each nationality is 400, and then 100 kids, maybe it's 500. 100 people probably helping to hold those 500 there. Everybody's there for 6 months at a time, or maybe they stay longer, and we want to show their nationalities and their culture, and for half the day kind of thing, and then the other half of the day they're like citizen of the
Sure.
little world, and
Yeah.
one world, one love. And I truly believe the planet is but one country, and mankind are the citizens, and we're all just citizens that are children of the cosmos.
Yes. Which brings me to my second to last question, which I always like to ask people who are on the podcast. And I know we'll have a future conversation where we get deeper into these concepts around spirituality, because I know that's one of the, I think, areas of interest that we definitely both share. And there's so much to unpack there, especially as it relates to the vision that you've had, people who are attracted to this work as well. Like, I'm really excited to talk about that. But I'm curious to know, how would you define a transcendent farmer?
Well,
Or what does that mean to you?
I think that the Nicoya Peninsula is like the Bermuda Triangle. It's got this crazy energy field. And I've been finding out that there is this stone called jasper that we researched that has a lot of healing energy to it, holds off negative energy, and it's very healing and blocks EMFs, and it's an amazing stone. And that's all over this peninsula. And people come here with good vibration and successful people, healthy people, and then they meet wrong people and wrong things and make wrong decisions. And pretty soon they're wrapped up in a party scene or get wiped out in a quad or crazy drinking, drugs, things. There's a lot of turnover of people who come here with great intentions. And then the energy of them and the vibe, and they're just making wrong decisions, and pretty soon they're burnt out and gone, and it's over. The karmic wheel's spinning very fast here. And then other people come here that are maybe not in the best shape and not together so much, and then they find the ocean and it heals them, and then they find some spirituality and yoga, and they start to train and connect with nature and the rhythms, and they're getting up early and they're getting in shape, and they really rise up, and it brings out the best and the worst in us here. So that being said, it's like helps people connect with nature and get healthy, and we have a lot of conscious people here, a lot of great healers here, a lot of people who want to grow their own food. Being self-sufficient here is, in the back of the minds and in the front of a lot of minds too, of a lot of international people. We have over 75 different nationalities here on the beaches, these 3-4 beaches. Montezuma is a long history of having the hippies, and some people thought it was like the umbilical cord to the earth or the belly button of the earth, they would say. And it was on the trek of Goa and Jamaica and different Thailand or whatever, and then Montezuma in Costa Rica. People go on the way to Machu Picchu or whatever. So I was kind of on the map with the hippies, and yeah, there's just a lot of people growing a lot of good things. The soil here up in the mountains, when you get away from the ocean, things grow like 5 times faster than you've ever seen. And you get farther away from the ocean, and it's like 10 times faster. And you get up on these hills, and you plant things, and it just grows off, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a great place to grow. And although a lot of bugs and insects and things, and there's challenges, and so some people have to deal with that. But the guy was just here actually was promoting neem oil, yes. And it's amazing. And I've been hearing about neem oil for over 30 years, and we've got neem trees here. I don't know where mine went. I was given neem trees years ago. I don't even know what's going on with them, but I know they're around, and I know that some people have them. And so that neem oil, you can add it to maybe even water with a little hydroperoxide, a little different things. There's lots of natural pesticides and herbicides that you can use to control insects and bugs. But
yeah. So what I'm hearing then is, it almost sounds like to you, the nature of being located in this particular geography is enough to qualify them as a transcendent farmer. It's like almost within the nature of the bedrock itself that allows them to be a transcendent farmer.
Yeah. We're growing kids organically. There's a lot of midwifery going on. It's too far to go to the doctor, and the doctor's situation is not so good. So people are trying to heal a lot on their own.
Yeah.
A lot of natural remedies going around. People are eating organic. We have good organic markets and organic food. Things are getting a little pricey for that, but still, it's a healthier way of living. So I think everybody is, I don't know if they're getting enlightened or whatever, but people are getting healthy here.
Yeah.
And if you're into it, there's like-minded people that you can relate to here. And when our surf shop, we had a slogan that we used to call Santa Teresa, a sunny place for shady characters. And that was a slogan that came from Havana, Cuba, back in the day when the mob from Miami would go vacation down in Havana, Cuba. And they would say that Havana was a sunny place for shady characters. But we heard that and we used that as a logo on our shirts and things like that. And one time when I was selling the shirts and some tourists came in and they were like, "What do you mean this town is full of shady characters?" And I'm like, "No." I go see, our logo was a surfer in the barrel, and I said, "See how this guy's in the shade? He's in the barrel. That's the shady character. We're all trying to get barreled and live in the tube."
Yes.
So yeah, being connected to nature and surfing saves my life, and it's kept me grounded and connected. And through getting injured, I've met so many healers and shamans around the world, and that's blown my mind on what's possible with healing and stuff. And so I've invented a new massage table that works on the parasympathetic motion. So the table rocks forward and backwards and sideways and stuff. And I practice acupuncture on people. I like to do massage on people. I like to help people. And we have a sauna full of hot jasper rocks and sacks that we put on the bones. So it's like a lomi thing. We do the ice plunges. We have friends that are Wim Hofers and do breath work like Martine, Breathe with Martine on Instagram. He's a great guy to follow. And Santa Teresa lifeguards follow that too. We haven't got anything for the Little World project yet or the digital detox, but soon that'll be out there. But yeah, I just say promote safety, water safety, promote natural connection, be conscious, be aware, and realize that you're a lot more powerful than you think you are. And we work better collectively. And alone we fall, and divided we fall, together we rise, kind of thing. And it's all about communicating. And if there's anything that I've learned from the COVID experience is that anything can happen and the governments can shut you down at any moment. I tell people to have a backup plan, have a different passport or a different country of choice, and have an option to move. Don't be locked down, stuck in your area. They're going to try to squeeze us more. They told us not to talk, and I tell people, if we're going to get through this, you got to talk to people. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be on your show and talk. Emily's been here a couple times and worked with us on many issues over the years. We really appreciate her talent and her drive and her unique organizational skills.
Well, thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it. And I'll make sure to include links to the lifeguard gym. We'll make sure to get your Synergy Art website link up there.
synergyart.net.
Martine. We'll throw all of that in the show notes so that people can get connected. But yeah, thank you for your time. This has been an awesome conversation. There's so many more questions that I would have loved to have asked, but we'll have to just table that for next time.
We'll see how the interest is.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode, and we will be back with another one very soon.